Okay. We got YouTube, we have Twitter, we're just waiting for Facebook, and Facebook has finally caught up to proceedings. So here we are. We're here for another Tuesday night interview session. In case you don't know, my name is Andrew. We've been joined, as always, by the lovely Nikki, who runs these proceedings for us. Also, say hi, Nikki.
Hi, Nikki.
And we have the awesome Morgan and Dave from the mighty Acolyte joining us tonight. There's a whole lot of links in the description of this, so whether you're watching now live with us or tuning in later on or catching up on the audio, make sure you hit the description or the post, whatever you're seeing this on, and follow the links to follow the band, because there's plenty there to go through. We've got a few clips in there for them. All their social details are there, as well as all of ours. So do the right thing. If you like what you see here, check out the music, give the band a follow, and if you've got any comments, thoughts, or whatever else, then jump in the comments and we'll try and bring them up on screen and interact with you all as much as we can. Speaking of that, just to give everyone a taste, Nudes, our good friend Nudes has jumped in to say hi, peoples. So he's a good regular of ours from over in South Australia. He loves these streams, so we love having him here with us, and we'll get some more as we go along. But David James is saying fuckers, so there we go. He got some more people. So there we go. It's all happening. So without any further ado, I'm going to throw it to Nikki to sort of kick us off. Over you go.
Yay. Well, I'm just going to start by my Wayne's World I'm not worthy moment. This band, I don't mind admitting that. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I have actually been talking to Andrew about talking to you guys for probably 2 months now, since you started dropping songs. And I'm like, oh, they'll be too busy. They've got too much going on. I'm too scared. And then I just reached out to you, Morgs, and we'll talk to you. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not worthy. So I got my first girl out of the way. So I'm going to say something I've never said in an interview before, and we interview bands every week, but I will be absolutely fucking shocked if your album is not my number one for the year. That's how much I love it.
Oh, bless.
It's a ripper.
And I cannot wait to talk about it more. So for those watching at home, would you please each introduce yourself and what you do in the wonderful band that is Acolyte?
Wait, that's the other way.
That way.
Yeah, it's reverse on this thing.
Yeah.
Are you going?
No, you go.
Okay.
Ladies first.
I'm Morgan, and I sing in the band Acolyte.
And I'm Dave, and I do the keyboards and synthesizers.
Woohoo! Yeah, you do. So let's talk about the history for people that might not be across it. How long have you guys been together, and what music have you put out to date? Where do we sit with our wonderful new release?
Are we going to do our story, Dave?
Yeah, do it.
You
do
it. You're so much better at it.
No. Yeah.
So Dave used to play in a band called Divine Ascension in Melbourne, and we met them playing, I think they were playing just before us at the Bendigo Hotel back in the day.
Okay.
And we played on stage, and they intimidated the fuck out of me because they had their leather pants on, and they were like quite a serious band at that stage. But they did sort of like, I still remember this day, like the guitarist and Dave all stood in a row with their arms crossed like this, just watching us. I was like, fuck. Anyway, I didn't realize that Dave actually is really not quite that serious of a person anyway. We hit it off completely ever since, and we were pretty much going to dinner maybe like once a week at least, I reckon, for a whole 12 months, Dave, were we?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. And we were just dancing around the idea of different things. Like I was sort of saying, it'd be cool one day to have keys in our band. Like it'd be fun, And he was sort of like, another week later, he'll be like, oh, I can hear keys in your future music. Like, that would be great. But we never asked each other. Yeah. And then eventually he just sort of came down. I was like, oh, I'll invite you down for a bit of, did you want to play? He's like, yes. Why the fuck didn't you ask me earlier? Yeah. And the rest is history.
Yeah. It was funny. Like Divine Ascension were doing a farewell tour before we did our European tour with Stratovarius, and this was like 2015. And I'd always loved neoclassical metal, like so much. It's sort of like in the blood. So, and then, but I'd always loved vintage keyboards, like Hammonds, Mellotrons, Minimogs, all that sort of stuff. But I couldn't fit it in what Divine Ascension were doing. I wanted to, but it just didn't fit that sound. And when I heard Acolyte, I was like, I could hear it straight away. You know, you sort of get that sense of, yeah, maybe I could hear some like haunting Mellotron things and some lead line analog synth stuff. And yeah, we just danced around the idea of it forever. It was almost embarrassing. It was like, I don't want to ask. Oh, she didn't want to ask. And it was just like this obvious conversation that just kept going and going and going. And then, yeah, it organically sort of it worked. It was hard, like to be honest, it was hard probably for the first month or maybe 2 months because keyboards just color everything. So, you know, we had to look at the existing, because I came in after they did the first EP, which was Shades of Black, and I could hear stuff in that, but you need to be careful. Like, you don't want to just take like a sonic dump on, you know, a band. You sort of want to like try and find where it fits. And yeah, we found it, and I was really keen on. I could see and hear the direction for the new album, which is the one that's just come out in my head, and was very much like, okay. Once we did a lot of tours with Shades of Black, I'm like, let's start doing this. And yeah, the rest, as Morgan says, is history, and it's been a fantastic ride ever since.
Yeah,
having a blast.
We often joke as well, me and Dave, that like, and even as we've grown up with each other, because it's been a number of years now, that we're in very many ways very similar to one another in our personality, but also we have a very similar musical language. So we really, really hear strong melody in everything that we do. So when we did the new album, he was basically coloring everything in the emotional set that I needed it to be, and for me to put my language on top of it. So like, it wasn't just that we needed keys, like we needed Dave.
That's good.
Yeah.
So kind.
Over it, because listening to your album, okay, first dumb question of the night. Is it pronounced Entropy?
Yes. Yeah.
Thanks for that. And because I actually looked up the meaning in the dictionary. So this is the dictionary meaning. There was two. There was alternate meanings. First,
yes.
One, a thermodynamic quantity representing the unavailability of a system's thermal energy for conversion into mechanical work, often interpreted as a degree of disorder or randomness in the system. And the second one, which just made a bit more sense to this brain, was lack of order or predictability, gradual decline into disorder, declining. So when you pick the name of your album and obviously the epic track that goes with, what did it mean to you, that word?
Oh dear, there's so much to this. Like, I feel like we wrote a lot of the music, or the boys did start putting that together for over so many years, like little bits and pieces before we really started tying it together. But when we actually went to lay it down as like, you know, a strong piece, and when I was going to put my lyrics on it and knew what I wanted it to be, I was going through a really tough time. And I think Dave had come out of a tough time as well at that stage. But because it was right at that time, I felt Entropy was really fitting, because it's like, it's a moment of disconnect and discovery. It's right at that moment where shit's just falling down and the beginning of the story takes place. But I pretty much told my entire story of what I was going through in the studio on that record at that time. So it's a very truthful record.
and it shows and it feels, and it's like, it's a record that I cannot put on in the background. I can't. I need to listen to it. I need to feel it. I need to drink it. It just fucking gets to me. And Dave VP, I will say, the keys are just phenomenal, and I can't imagine that album without them. Like, I truly couldn't. Like, and that was one of my comments for later on. It's like every instrument, whether it's guitar, vocals, bass, keys, drums, gets their time to shine, but those keys are, I used to wait. The whole album to me is ethereal. I'm there.
That really means a lot. So no, thank you. We really very much appreciate it. That's so many good feelings.
Beautiful, Nikki. Yeah. When we started doing it, Like if you had the demos and stuff like that, they sounded very different. But when we knew it was going to be as raw as what it was and as exposed as what it was at that stage, we wanted to make things as organic as possible. So Dave actually tracked down as many of the vintage instruments that he possibly could. He didn't just play all that on the Korg. Like we literally had a 1950s Hammond organ through a Leslie. We had a real Mellotron. You had an entire keys lab. And then I think you also
a ton of stuff.
Yeah. And he also wrote like big chordal arrangements that were choir, but we were like, fuck that. We're going to recreate that. So we had like those choirs are a mixture of like 12-part harmonies that were literally sung in rather than, on the Korg. We also brought in a whole lot of like guest players on it because we wanted everything to sound just so real and have that woody sound to it. In clarinet or in flute or in oboe or in any of those folk instruments that you can hear because they're real. We're not sampling. It goes back to Chris as well, just such an arrangement wizard, our drummer. He even ended up having a drumming day where he had an open room that just had every kind of percussion instrument you could possibly think of to play on there. So I don't even know the names of everything. Do you, Dave?
Oh, not really. He had like a giant, he had some timpanis and he had
tubular bells.
Yeah, tubular bells. So when you hear like the big bell sound, like that wasn't from the keys. That was like an actual tubular bell. Like we got sick of, and I'm not knocking any production techniques at all. I'm not knocking it because they definitely suit different things. But we didn't want to use like a lot of apps. We didn't want to use a lot of samples. We wanted to use the real thing because it kind of, in a way, shaped this album because the album's very real. We wanted it, it's about real emotions and the rawness of life. And so we wanted raw instruments. And as Morgan said, like Chris used all of this raw stuff. We used special guests. I've got an old Hammond organ from 1957 and a Fender Rhodes and a Mini Moog from the 70s and Odyssey from the 70s and the new recreation ones as well. So we wanted to use that stuff because it's got character, and that's a lot of people will use the apps or they'll use a lot of online stuff, and it does sound similar, but there's an element of character you lose if it's not the real thing. And we really wanted to capture that because, as Morgan said, like the one word that for me sums it up is raw. We want it to be like, this is heartfelt. This is, real stuff. So, yeah.
It actually takes me back, Dave, to when you were playing. I remember saying to him, probably because he was going to go off on a tour with One Desire, like almost halfway through our recording session. So he was a little bit nervous because he didn't know what was going to happen with everyone else's parts at that time, and he was sitting in on everyone's pieces. And I remember saying to him the whole time, at the end of what we used to call Wicker, which, what is that called now? I don't even remember.
It's not accepted.
Recovery. Yeah. That's the piano piece. And I had been talking to Dave and trying to lead him that way the entire recording process. And he's like, I hate fucking piano. Fucking hate it. It's not the same as keys. And I was like, it needs that language there, And I remember I was the only one that could get there on the day that Dave came in and recorded that. And he just sat down at the piano with our producer at the time, and he just ad-libbed that. That was all just the language that flowed straight out of him. So that is all just straight out of his head on the day, to the point that if you really listen to it, you can hear the creaky chair when he moves. Yeah.
You can, there's so many things I hear that there's one part like you do all these big chords and then I like change position to play a different chord and you just see this. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, it makes it real, and you sort of go, I don't want to cut that out because that is how it works. So, but it was funny, like Morgan said, because I've never been a piano fan. I think because when you're younger, you do piano lessons, and it kind of killed it a little bit for me. And then when I got into synthesizers, I was like, oh, these are toys. I can create any sound that I want, and this is magical. And I did. Halfway through recording, I'd finished most of the keys parts, and I did a tour with a Finnish band called One Desire, and I came back, and I was like jet lagged and Morgs was like on my back, oh, are you going to add piano to this song? And I'd hoped, I haven't even told you this, Morgan, I hoped she would forget And just kind of be like,
Fucking never. It was on my mind the whole month.
And it was just because Prasheen, the producer, was magic. He's just like, I'm going to set up the piano, just play so I can get the levels right. So I just play to get the levels right. And he said, perfect, that's it. And I was like, what? I'm sitting there for like a good 20 minutes and I was just trying different ideas and getting used to the room. And he's like, cool, done, come in, have a listen. And I still, to this day, find it uneasy because I don't know what it is with piano. I just find when I'm playing it, it's like I'm watching myself playing it. I'm not feeling as though it's me playing it, if that makes sense. Whereas with the synth stuff, it's like, I can do all that. And it feels, I don't know what it is.
Piano doesn't give you anywhere to hide. Synth has a much bigger sound wall. Piano is much more organic.
Yeah. Oh, it does. It does. Most rehearsal studios know. Dave gets there early so he can have the room to himself for a good half an hour, and everyone knows what room he's in the whole studio. Like,
To more, because I named Recovery as one of my standout tracks, and how it fades and goes quiet at the end, the piano, it's just beautiful. And I love your voice, Morg, so any song that doesn't have your voice on it is normally a negative for me. But this track, I will go, no, the instrumental, the piano is stunning. So Morg,
Here we go. We're going to get the boys being ganged up on by the girls for now. That's what's going to happen for the rest of this interview.
We'll have to stick together.
I think it's like, go.
No, you go. Okay. All right, we'll do it this way then. I just want to quickly jump in because Michael Gow, I believe someone you know, has jumped in to say hey all before, which is cool.
Hi,
and Raudism jumped in to say welcome to the Raw Games. So there's fun with friends of ours over on YouTube. Had them the other week. And Jimmy, our good friend Jimmy, evening all. Hope all is good. The album is fantastic. Morgs and Dave, big congrats on that one.
Oh, Jim.
Cheers, Jimmy.
Thanks, babe.
Thanks, man.
I just wanted to jump in and ask a question relating to what you're talking about with the studio there before, and that is, I know, Nick, you'll have questions about vinyl later on, but I wanted to get to, did you always have vinyl in mind for the finished product? And then also, when you're talking about wanting to make things as real and organic as possible, did you use retro microphones as well to go with this, like the old Neumanns and things like that, instead of just using the SMs and that from the studios?
Yep, 100%. Actually, we spent an entire, recording in a studio is very expensive, particularly the way that we did it. We were lucky enough to fly out our producer so that we could bring the same team together that recorded Carnival Sound Awake. So, but the only way we could do that was to get him back from the UK, Prasheen. So, but originally when I was choosing the mics that I was going to use, we spent an entire day in a recording studio actually just tracking against about 5 different microphones. And they were all vintage. Like, the best thing about Sing Sing Studios in many, many ways is they're 80 years, 70 years worth of saved vintage stuff. And I ended up with a Neumann, but an original one from it was gold, had some sort of like diamond valve thing in it that if we dropped it, I think he said it.
The gold-plated ribbon and all those things. Yep.
Yes. So he was like, I was sort of being a bit silly because they were building what I call my little cave, my little den, my little velvet den, every studio that we went to. And I had a little lamp in there and my own little everything. It was really cute. But I think I was getting really close at one stage because I was blowing out my voice a bit, and then we would go on to things where we wanted a bit of husk and stuff like that later on when I'd done that. And I got so close and into it with my eyes closed, I would be touching it sometimes and moving it a little bit. And I remember the producer just saying, just don't knock it over because that's about $100,000 or something, or, more. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? Come again? You just can't comprehend that shit. But we were so lucky with the things we were able to use on this record. It just really, really brought everything together.
Yeah. Took longer.
Go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it took longer to use the more old school stuff. You have to, get all the set and everything right. But I don't know. It's always worth it. It just sounds. I love. You can hear the difference. So I was like
the depth of sound and the orchestration and strings and things. You can't replicate that. As much as people are very close, they're so close, but there's just something about real strings and stuff and that impact it has that can't replicate it.
Yeah.
And that would come down to also having an engineer with that capability, because
Yes.
I dated an audio engineer for 7 years, and that was when things were analog and old school, and progressively it all moved to digital and apps and plugins and all the good stuff. But I feel like you need someone who's been around a long time, who actually understands the nuances and how to get the best out of those original instruments. Would that be fair?
Oh,
Oh,
we
yeah.
love Prasheen, don't we? We often like refer to him almost as our sixth member, you know, when we're looking for pockets when he's back in Australia to just dump more shit on him. But honestly, he is, the way he was able, we were not going through an easy time in the studio. Like, let's face it, right, Dave? Like, you know, and that's what comes out. Like, we were a family for sure, but it was a difficult time. And he was just, so he actually got landed with not only having to deal with all of those nuances of things that we wanted to do that were so huge, but also trying to get the best performance out of people who weren't quite there to do that, or couldn't quite do that, or felt they couldn't, you know. The way he did that for every individual is just so admirable.
Absolutely. And you should say why that was, though.
Because I'm a stubborn ass and I didn't tell anybody. Yeah, I wasn't feeling quite right after we finished Progfest. I think 2018. I'm pretty sure it's 2018 or whatever.
I think
Yeah.
it was January 2019. I think. Was it?
Oh, you have it.
Oh, 2018. Oh.
Yeah.
I'll actually talk about that later, because I was there. I told you about that before.
There you go.
Dave had it's actually hilarious because that was a hot day, Nikki. It was like 50 something degrees in there, and I think the air cons were broken. They used car lights still there, so you know it was like 58 degrees or something on stage. They had Lepros headlining. I remember that because they're from Finland or something, and they nearly fucking died up there. Like they basically passed out. It was terrible. But Dave had just spent a month in like snow and stuff, and he just got off the plane to come play this gig, and he was pale white and just, I'm pretty sure that the keys were holding him up. He was so sick.
I did another European tour and was playing keys in the band, and we finished in Lapland, which was -27, and then I flew to Helsinki, and then from Helsinki to, I think it was China for a stopover, and then to Melbourne, and it went from -27 to +50 something on stage. And it's just like, and I saw Lepros, I went in there and I'm like, I know how you're feeling, like this is shit. And they're like cold towels all over themselves, and it was magic.
But I remember finishing that show and I said, you know, guys, I need a rest for a while. We've been touring nationally, like just one after the other. I'm just feeling really tired, you know? And so I had a little bit of time, but I'm so stubborn and I don't listen to myself well enough, and I know that. And we went into the studio, I think October, to start tracking Entropy, which was going to be a single by itself at that stage. We hadn't really decided to bring it out as an album and all that, even though we had other material. But we thought, let's just try and get another single out. And I turned up there and everyone's like, what the hell's wrong with it? She's just not with it. And I'm like, you know, I hate feeling exposed. At that stage, I was like someone who hates being vulnerable, and I'm the leader and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And I remember as people were pressing me, I was just breaking into tears. What I actually had was chronic fatigue, but as an adult, it affects you very differently to when you're a kid. It, at least for me, it did all these random things to me that scared the hell out of me. Like there was one night where I woke up and half my face didn't work, and it took me like almost like I'd had a stroke. But it meant that there were times where I'd go in there and I'd just be so tired, and I had brain fog, and I just couldn't say the things that I wanted to say to people. And communication is one of my like strongest things. I really, really value it really highly. And I just couldn't, like me and Dave were so close at that stage, and I just couldn't communicate how I felt. But he was so frustrated that I couldn't, because he so was used to me being able to. So it was an interesting time.
And look, to be honest, it's the reason I think it's a good story, and I love it that Morgan says it, is because that actually sums up the album, because we had done the demos, we said we wanted to do it in the studio, and then Morgan got sick. And yeah, and I get it. Like, we're very similar. She didn't want to show weakness, but we knew something was up. Like, she was struggling emotionally and she didn't want to say anything. We were sensing it. We were going in and the lyrics for some songs hadn't been written. So we were shitting bricks because we're like, we're paying a fortune. I can't really push her because I feel like she's going to break. And she doesn't want to tell me what's going on. I don't know what's going on. And each day you're hoping for the best in a situation, but there was tension. Like, there was a lot of tension. But then the best part of that was that then led to Morgan writing the lyrics. And that's where so much rawness in how she was feeling. And it was literally like, if you could throw up emotion and it formed words, and I mean that in the nicest way, don't visualize it, that's what it created, because the lyrics are so powerful that it matched the powerful music, because that's what she was going through. And it's interesting when I think, if she wasn't going through that and we didn't have that situation, would it be the same? And again, that's why I say, like, rawness, because it was. We didn't plan to have everything the way that it ended out. We didn't know how it was going to end out, and everyone was sort of going, oh, shit, is this going to work? Is this not going to work? But I don't know, sometimes that's where the magic is, if it's too straightforward and everything's happy go, that's great. But sometimes when things aren't great, that can make something that's a little bit magic.
Yeah. Do you just on that, for one, Morgan, I'm hoping that you're feeling much better these days than you were at that point.
Yeah. No, it took a while, but we only had the month, so it was pretty brutal time.
Yeah, but do you feel like coming out the other side of this album, one, does having that process you've gone through, has that helped with the healing? But then also as a group, what's it done to the chemistry of the group going through that together and having this as the product on the other side?
It's an interesting thing because, as Dave said, because I don't think we had recorded together before, and we were all just investing so much because we decided to tackle this as a big label would, but we decided to invest in it ourselves so that they didn't have any control over it beforehand. So it was a huge investment, and there were a couple of people that hadn't worked with other people before, so they didn't know what they were sort of capable of doing. I think I've talked to you, Andrew, before on previous things where I've said, I always write melody first. I'm a very melody-driven person. So I kept saying to the guys, I have a very, very good idea of where I'm going with how I want it to sound or how I want it to be. I also was really, really bold in sort of saying, because the people we were working with as far as recording vocals were very, very into really producing vocals, the type of vocals that you hear today. But I love seeing artists that basically lay it out. I feel like when it's not overly edited, you really have an opportunity to really hear what someone's trying to portray emotionally. So I basically said, I don't want it over-edited. I don't want it smooth. I want it to have all of the nuances and the little bit of imperfections that you get in a voice. I also want to be able to smash it out live and sound exactly the same. Like, there is that as well. But basically I was still able to tell the guys a little bit about indicating kind of, at that stage I knew it was going to be conceptual because I didn't have any other, it was literally everything I was going through at that time. I couldn't go out and do anything else. I was basically in the studio, resting, coming back, resting. So I could only deal with what was going on in my mind at the time. So I could at least communicate to the guys thematically, these songs are going to be like this, and this song's going to flow into this. Even when me and Dave spoke about the piano and how I felt about that song being called Recovery before it had piano and leading into the last song. And I said, the last song to me is going to be acceptance. And the reason it's not going to be acceptance and like this big elated feeling at the end. It's going to be acceptance in like, okay, how do I live with this? I accept this is my reality. It's a duality here and we have to go ahead with it. So it's kind of like, once he sort of had that, and once the guys started to hear that kind of idea coming from me, that's when all the flow sort of started to happen between the music, I feel, which they worked so hard on.
Yeah. Definitely.
Cool.
This is a dark interview, isn't it? I feel a bit like...
I think it's actually important to dig into. I think it's
good to be honest.
Absolutely. Because you feel it in the album. And like, I made a comment, and it might seem flippant now, and after hearing that, it probably is flippant, and it wasn't intended that way. I almost feel they could write a movie around this album. When I listen to it, when I listen to the songs and the music and the lyrics and the voice, I do feel the raw and the pain and the journey. And one of the songs that really sticks out for me is Clarity. That's one, the lyrics just fucking, they get me.
Clarity killed.
Now that you're telling us this, I'm suddenly got whole new eyes and respect and admiration on you both.
Yeah.
Like, incredible.
Oh, great.
Clarity, that killed me, write it. The guys know this. Like, I had actually written that one probably before a lot of the other ones because I knew it was going to be a duet.
Mm-hmm.
And it was born, like I always say this, I've written it online a lot of the times, it was from the very, very lowest point that I experienced. But I feel like a lot of people will understand that. Like, you know, it's just like everything's so heavy and you sort of only have you and yourself looking into a mirror and you're talking to that person, just trying to fucking put things back in order. Like, where the fuck did everything go wrong? And so that conversation piece, and the reason that it's a duet is it's like basically a conversation between yourself, the warmer part of yourself and the more unsure part of yourself. And just getting to the stage where it just gets to a stage and it goes, you know, I can't fucking do this, blah, 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 and then murmuring back down so that you settle back down. You're like, I'm okay, had that minute, like, let's get back on with it. And when I wrote it, I originally had so many different people in mind that were really, really keen to do it, but it was a matter of sort of finding the right time to do it. I was lucky with who we had. I think originally I'd written it for Nick from 12 Foot, and we actually got to a stage before, like I think he was actually coming in, so the day before, and he couldn't do it.
Yeah,
so
right.
yeah, and I think there was I even had a conversation with Flynn from Cog, because I thought that could be an interesting sort of sound, but I'm really, really glad the way it landed, like, and the way that he sung it, because I was right next to him on the floor and I was sort of like telling him how I wanted the nuances to go and different things like that. But the way he sung it in meant that I could perform it, you know, I could perform it on my own if I had to. I feel like if some of these other guys did it, it would be difficult because they've got so much character in their voice, if that makes sense. So that would become difficult. But I'm happy. Yeah, I love that song, Nikki. That's my favorite.
Just stabbed me in the heart, babe. Like, just stabbed me in the feels. So there you go.
Respectfully, that's good.
We don't need to to death.
Yes.
And this is why I love talking to people, because I want to hear what was in your head or what your vision was when you wrote something. And hearing this is a privilege and an honor, because as a punter, I listen to a song and I identify with it in my way and I interpret it in a way that makes sense to me. But when I hear the artist tell me what really was going on, it just means everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's part of music, you know, you can have lyrics that you can interpret and put your own story to. I think that's great, but I always love to find, and like, that's why I was sort of pushing Morgan to say, tell why, because when you find out why, it makes more sense. You sort of go, oh, okay, I can hear where this is coming from, and you can sort of visualize it. And like I said, the lyrics just perfectly captured the moodiness of the music, because the music was written before all of this went down. And it's hard when you write music because you often have lyrics in mind, but you don't know what they're going to be. And I was wrapped. I was like, it just took something that was already sort of quite emotive and just took it to that instant level, which was fantastic.
Yeah. And we're crazy ambitious too. Like, we basically came out with a record that had 5 songs on it previously, 5 or 6. And for anybody else, that would be an EP. But because they're longer, it was an album, you know. I think most people in the local scene would have thought we were fucking mad doing what we did for the next record, really. And we made these decisions even when we were in there, and we knew how much we were going to pay for it, for those decisions. But, you know, I think I'd said to Chris about 1 million times, like, I want it to be a concept album. He's like, settle down. Like, you know, that's a big ask. You know, there's some people that don't take that on until much later in their career. And I'm like, no, fuck it. I want to do it. And I am lucky that I went through what I went through, because it made it much easier to tell something cohesive. But Dave's right. Even though we had written a lot of the music before we went in, we actually didn't demo it to the level that most people would before they go in. And we also spoke about the importance of trying to tie everything together so it flowed as one cohesive movement. And we worked really, really hard on that in the studio to make it more cinematic, because we quite often call it that too, Nikki. Like, we're always talking about cinematic prog, you know, all that kind of stuff. Because we love that, you know. Like Dave and Jason, everyone, we're always talking about scores and like Hans Zimmer and like, you know, just our favorite stuff that makes us feel something. Like, I think we were talking about the Never-Ending Story the other day, Dave.
Okay.
When the horse like drowns in the pit, and it's like
sadness.
it's just gut wrenching, you know. But it's all synth, and it's by that really famous like synth guy. But yeah, like that's what we sort of focused on throughout all of that. And then when we decided to do all the orchestration and all the extra people and everything, we knew we needed it. But we knew how many extra days that would be and what it meant, you know. We're crazy people. I don't know.
It ends because you listen to this and it's like nothing else. Like, I mean, you know, we listen to records all day, Andrew and I. It's what we do. It's like nothing else, and it's one of a kind. It's out of the box, and it shows all the detail and attention and emotion and sound and everything you put into it. Truly does show. And for those out there, listen to this album. Do yourself a favor. It's stunning. I can't even articulate it eloquently. It's not.
It will
I'm not
be up there
worthy.
at the end of the year. Sure, it'll definitely be up there at the end of the year in a lot of our lists, I think. Just touching back on the album for a second here, and you're talking about the expenses you've gone through and the effort you've gone to, all that sort of stuff. So now that it's out and you're getting all this fantastic feedback, because I don't think I've seen even one negative really thought on it per se. You guys obviously see the reviews more than I do, but everyone I hear talk about this one loves it. So when you know you've put in the effort, the finances, all those things combined, and you get to this point now, it's out. Is it more relief, or is it a feeling of vindication or satisfaction at this stage? What this feeling now, where it's at now? Where is that sort of leading you?
Cool. That's a great question. Like, I think it's a lot of relief, because and I don't know how many people know, but we finished recording at the start of 2019. So we had, you know, I don't want to say it's old, because it's not old, but, you know, we had finished, it was January. I came back from overseas to do the piano part, and that was like one of, if not the last track that we did from memory. And then the whole idea was 2019, we're going to get the album together, have a little bit of a break from touring, because we did do Shades of Black like a lot of around Australia. I think we did like 4 times or something, and that was a privilege, and I'm not knocking it, but you do, you know, need to have a break sometimes. And we're going to have a bit of a break, get the album together, artwork together and everything, and then 2020 was going to be the year. And then, you know, like so many bands, that didn't eventuate. And some great stuff happens in 2020 with, you know, signing to the labels and getting a brilliant manager who we're meeting with after here. She's just absolutely brilliant. So there's so many positives there too. But we were getting frustrated, because it was like, do you release it now when people are in lockdown, or do we wait and release it later? And it was just this horrible situation where I remember saying, if we release it later, so is everyone else. So it's so easy to get lost in the noise.
Yeah.
And we knew it was different. Like, we knew, okay, you know, this doesn't sound like everything else, which was obviously a great benefit. And thank you so much for your kind words, because that really means a lot, you saying that. And but we were still like, this could work against us here. But that part was hard, but we said, no, we have to do this because there's never going to be a right time. Who's to say 2021 is going to be, I remember we were saying this in 2020, like, who's to say 2021 is not going to be a similar year? Like, we can't keep sitting on it. So we did that, and now it's gone from relief to, I don't want to say frustration, but we just want to play, and that's the hard thing. It's so lovely when you have people reviewing it and they're saying such great things about the album. And we did the Off Chapel live stream, which was fantastic. But it's not the same when there's not an audience there. It's not the same when the people who come to your shows aren't there that you can talk to and hang around with and everything like that. Like everyone else in the music scene, if you're a musician, you don't obviously do it for the money. You do it because there's something here that says this is what you do. And when you don't do that, it tells you. And that's how I think a lot of us are feeling now. We're not, I won't say like depressed or anything like that, but it's like we've released it. We're so happy that people are enjoying it. Now we want to play it. Now we want to tour it. And that's the hard part for me anyway. I'm sure you probably feel similar, Morgs.
I mean, I'm relieved because it was the last thing we were holding on to from being unwell. I feel like when we released it, it was like the last thing, like I was giving that to other people now, like I wasn't holding on to that anymore. So for me, it was a real nice sort of like cathartic experience. But Dave's right. We, like, not even in just our music, our band's really, really ambitious, not aggressively, but we definitely plan very, very far ahead, when me and Jace and Frank back in the first iteration of the band used to, we were actually three best mates, but we always used to say, really, we just got to get music out there to attract the people we want in this band, and then we'll have the next album, and then what do we want to do from there? And, of course, we got Chris and we got Dave. And then heading into the studio, I was sitting on the couch and I was saying to the guys, well, I'm working on this now. We're not releasing this without a manager and labels. And then they're like, okay, well, then what's next after that? And I'm like, well, a booking agent. And the first thing I spoke to the manager about was, I just want to focus on the music now. Like, I love it, and I want to stay as strong as this record is in the future. But to be able to do that, I need to have my whole mind free to do that with the boys, And in that time, we were able to get... What was that?
You used to manage it all yourself, Morgan, before this.
I did everything, yeah. Absolutely everything. So, with this, it was kind of like it gave us everything that we needed. And I think we forget that because the journey between doing it and releasing it was so long that we didn't really get to celebrate those little bits and pieces that we got along the way. The only thing I will say about like releasing it and sort of like we skim so many different types of musical styles, I find. So it's interesting how people perceive it. I tend to ignore it a little bit, a lot of the time, if I can, because we're so different. We're not going to tickle everybody's fancy because, if it falls into the hands of someone who likes a little bit more hardcore, a little bit more gent, which is probably more the style now in prog itself, then it's not going to be for them and it's going to be swayed that way anyway. But it's interesting when it does find its way into the hands of purists that are those that little bit older that might have liked that Pink Floyd or Yes or like Rush or things from back in the day, and they get that little nuance of that little bit that we've added, and they just love it. And I love hearing that. Yeah.
Pink Floyd's mine.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. It sings to your soul, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Before I forget to mention it, because honestly, I haven't even scratched the list of things I want to talk to you about. Because I'm so loving what we are talking about. This is better than what I had written down. Let's quickly talk about what people can buy. I was a silly, silly girl. Unlike Michael Gow, who I know is watching tonight, I didn't get my Candle Red vinyl, and I'm an idiot because it's sold out now. So serves me right. So I'm going to get the long T deluxe pack with the double vinyl, the long T, the digipack, all the good stuff.
Oh, awesome.
What you put out is just insane. Like, you've got your candle wax vinyl. There's still beautiful red vinyls available. There's obviously the black vinyls available. You have an amazing artwork by Liz, someone I feel like. Have I got the name right?
Ridley. Yes.
Thank you. I'd love to talk about not even just the music, which is bellissimo, but the other things you do as well with this. This is awesome.
Yeah.
With
So other than hearing things in melody, because that's how I tend to write. Some people are poets and lyricists first. I tend to feel the music first, so that's how I do that. But I also see picture. Like I have to see something vividly and describe it. Like that's how I write. So basically, a lot of the artwork things and stuff like that have been left to me to sort of go with for the band. I remember when I knew that this record was going to be dark, and as I mentioned, the melodies and things that came in early, that there were a few people that went through things at different times of developing this record musically before even I came into the picture and had something go wrong. So I already knew thematically there was going to be dark edges to this album. And I'd worked with Liz Gridley because she also does makeup, like paint on the face and makeup and stuff. She doesn't do it anymore because she's an amazing worldwide renowned artist now. But she worked with us on The Message to do all of our face makeup on that day. Oh, and Perceptions.
Yep.
And I remember contacting her and I said, I want to do something like this. I just want it to feel, I want it all to be about your stuff. And I commissioned 3 artworks from her. It's only featured at the moment on the CD. If you're lucky enough to get the digipack, you'll get all 3. It's absolutely stunning. And I remember talking to one of our best mates about kind of what was in my head and what I wanted to do. And Liz said, instead of me just coming up with it, it would be much better if I had something physical to go off. So someone's going to have to perform to your music these sort of like movements so that we can choose 3 that sort of bring the album together. And I was talking to one of our friends at a party on a couch after we played like a live jam in someone's apartment one night. And she was like, well, I'll do it. And I was like, I didn't even know you modeled. And she goes, I would take my shirt off for that. Like, it'd be fantastic. I have no problem with this, whatever. And I was like, oh, okay. And she fucking nailed it. So not only did I have Liz create these amazing commissioned artworks that are actually for sale at the moment, people can buy the actual original massive pieces. But it's also a great mate that's featured on the front and at the back and as you keep going through. So it was cool.
Beautiful.
Very nice.
I just think it's such a value add for the fans buying it as well. Like, you're not just buying an amazing oral experience, you're getting that visual, tactile. You're throwing everything else in there as well.
We always tend to do that. Like, I'm meticulous about it to the point where the guys do not want to be around me when I'm making the final decision. Like, it's kind of like, I don't care. You always make the right decision. And I'm like, I need to talk to someone. Like, when we knew that we were possibly doing records. Originally, because of how much the quotes were that came back, to be quite frank and honest and open with that, without any kind of label support. But we knew that we wanted to do it eventually, and we probably will do something still that's like a special edition of this record in the future because of how it's sort of sat with everybody at the moment. So what you're hearing on that, if you buy a CD and you buy the vinyl, we actually had it remastered specially for vinyl. So it's done with a lot of care and effort, and it's done at 45 RPM. So it's like probably the best way that you will hear it is via that way. And the reason we did it that way is because we want it to be experienced as a full piece. Like, and it makes it harder to skip songs. It makes it harder to do all of these different things. So by pushing it and making sure we had the best product be the one you couldn't do that with, that's why.
Cool. I'm just going to quickly jump in with some. We're getting close to time, but I'll make sure the audience that have put some notes in here, I want to get to them just quickly here. Michael Gow jumped in to say that night at Progfest was great but hot. So, yes, that's a memory for more than just you guys there. Nikki was there as well. Helen DiMartino is a regular of ours. She jumped in a bit later on because she was apparently giving a spray to the ABC, so I don't know what was going on there with question time, but okay, she was having a crack. But she jumped in to say you've had a lineup change. You've had a few over the years, actually. Has that endeared your audience, and what nuances or sounds have sort of changed with the lineup changes you've gone through to where you are now?
We've changed quite a few different people. But I think that we're getting closer and closer to what our final iteration will be. The biggest change that I would say, would be the way that Chris sort of plays. His rhythmic contributions are just so different. Being, somebody who can play in jazz and a bunch of other things, and just loving his instrument so much. Yeah. He's added so much. And he's fun to watch, guys. He plays 2 kits open-handed. He's an ambidextrous drummer, so have fun with that. But obviously, the size of our music, the epicness of our music, it was big before. Now it's much, much larger. The language that we have is a little bit different now. And obviously, the addition of Dave's probably the biggest, and it'll be the one that everyone notices.
Well, it's a big difference on this album versus Shades of Black, because the difference in composition and the sonics of it is very vast in that regard.
Yep.
I think for the better, just for the record. But yeah, it is a big difference, but I think it works well for you guys. So it's nicely put there as well. Just a quick another note from Helen. She's gone, Morgan is wearing a Sea Shepherd tee. My seamate is flying sorties as a helicopter pilot for the Sea Shepherd and spotted the Nishan Maru illegally whaling in the Antarctic, which was exposed worldwide. So there you go. There's a good friend of ours, Helen. She's always got stories every single time she's in that one.
Good one, Helen.
Yeah. Nudes, our good friend Nudes, this has probably been done to death in previous interviews, but he's not seen it covered anywhere. So the band name, where did the band name come from? Because he's thinking of WWE wrestling, but I'm not quite sure that's the one for you guys.
You know what I might do, Andrew? Because I'll be back. You try and explain something there.
Okay.
I'll be back too.
Yeah, I love that. She leaves me like the second you were saying the band explain where they came up with the name.
I live with Jace on bass from a band. Just came in the back door. So I was basically like, can't say it because it was all you. But basically, band names are the shittest. They're the hardest to come up with. We knew we wanted one word. I wanted something that I could design really, really well and not have it be a whole lot of crap. And Jay said, well, it has to start with A because then that's at the beginning of everybody's, libraries and stuff. Yep. And then no one will get tired of it. They'll always have Acolyte at the top. Yep. I'm like, right. I hated that name to start with. It took me I did. It took me about 4 years to get used to it, but it's just a name now, isn't it? But I guess at the start we were both saying we like the idea that it's the guardian of something else. So it's basically like we're all worshipping a better thing. I don't know. I don't really know. I'm coming up shit, aren't I? I don't know.
Wow, that's impressive.
That's not bad, though. A good way. If you refine it a bit, and there you go. And Helen's jumped in to say, I thought Morgan was coming back with a costume change. So, no, that's not. We haven't done that with all.
Did you see my pajama pants? I am wearing pajama pants.
If they watch it back, they'll go on and freeze frame that. Interesting for you. Before we do have to let you go, you did the live stream and stuff. You've done a few different things. It's a bit hard to plan at the moment with everything going on with restrictions, and we don't know anything at the moment in this country in general. But wishing to happen, and what is actually on the radar for you guys to happen over the next sort of few months to a year or so?
Do you want me to go?
Yeah.
We've got to play. Me and Dave, we're probably the big ones in that. I reckon Jace is actually, Chris needs it, but he has so many outlets because he has so many other things he does. I think Jace, me, and Dave, that's where we do our best work. We feel we love it up there. And we love engaging and doing all that. So we want to get back out there and do that. There obviously is a bunch of things in the works, but there's a number of people working in the background on it instead of it just being me. I think long story short, if we didn't have a pandemic, we would be overseas by now. that's kind of like where a lot of the offers are coming from, which is what we wanted, which is nice. But, you know, it is what it is. But we will be out there. Keep an eye out.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. Yeah, so that's the aim. That's definitely the aim. A lot of live stuff, a lot of touring, and even, you know, we're even thinking we don't rest on our laurels. You know, looking at new music and everything as well, and just, you know, we want to keep evolving and keep pushing and trying new things, which is, sorry, my dog's going crazy in the background.
No, I love seeing it. It's awesome. I was going to actually put it up on full screen so everyone can see it in all its glory.
It's like she does this thing where she'll grab something like that.
Everyone can see it now.
So, right there, she'll do it until she's comfortable, and then she'll just run off. And
like that.
She does it on a beanbag for 10 minutes. She'll just jump around until she gets comfortable, and then she's like, all right. And then she just takes off. I've never seen another dog do that, but we have now.
Yeah, no, they do love to nest. All dogs love to nest. You've seen my dogs running around the joint over the years. So
yeah, absolutely.
Looking me in the eyes when I'm sitting down in a chair, a giant.
Talking about stage performance, like I was saying to Andrew off air before you came on, you guys played at the Extravaganza for the Hard Rock Show. Maybe 2017. I'm pretty shit with years. Sorry. And at the time, I was mesmerized. I mean, that was my standout band of the night. And I loved every band on that bill, but Acolyte were the one that just, I've seen you obviously perform a few times since then. You did a tour with the wonderful boys at 12 Foot Ninja, the Outlier tour. Yeah. Is there a memorable performance you've been a part of, or is there a lineup that you particularly aspire to be a part of?
There's been so many, Nikki. Like, we're tour hogs, so like we've played not just the main cities, but we do a lot of the ones on the way, and we stop in, and you know, one of our favourites is Mount Gambier. Just, you know, the comments and stuff that come there, you know, you'll be like, you guys rock. And they'll be like, of course we fucking do. We live in a volcano. Like, just random shit, you know.
Family in Mount Gambier. You just tug the heartstring, Morgs.
Yeah, absolutely. We love it there. We've got a really good little crowd there too now. But I don't know. What would yours be, Dave?
There's so many. Like, obviously, Progfest was great, being, you know, as hot as it was, and it was, you know, that was a fantastic time. I love playing shows like that where you get to mingle with other bands and talk about their thought process, and you know, I'm being a keyboard player, I always try to find bands that have got keyboards and look at what are you using, and sort of going up to them and finding out their sort of stuff. I really loved, though, to be honest, I loved the 12 Foot tour. The 12 Foot tour was so much fun because even though our music is so different, everyone just gelled. And we were worried at one point, you remember this, Morgs, we were worried. I was really concerned that they might have thought that we were like severe drug addicts or something like that, because in our dressing room, I had long hair at the time, and I had this powder that was like dry shampoo or something like that. And
it was powder.
Yeah, you can see where this is going. And I spilt it, and it just, the whole floor was just covered in this powder. Anyway, everyone's going, oh, shit, because it's about $20 worth of, you know, dry hair shampoo. Like, who gives a shit? But anyway, right at the time, everyone's in the band's like, we're scooping it together, and the 12-foot guys walked past. And we're like, oh, you've got to get it all up, you know, don't waste it.
And the 12-foot guys aren't quiet. They're like, hey, what's going on here? Or try it. It'll surprise you.
It'll surprise you.
Yeah, exactly. There's
always a great tour.
Yeah, it's always fun. You know, there's never a time that's not fun. We had this show we did, and I know we're sort of pushed for time, but we had this show we did. What was it? It wasn't Sydney. What's Newcastle?
I don't know what you're talking about yet.
We did that. We did this tour, and we went, I think it was Newcastle. It was this cool venue, but what we didn't know was at 12 o'clock, it turned into like a almost like, what would you call it? Like
an alternative bar, but like
an alternative
an
bar.
inclusive bar.
An inclusive bar, which is, hey, no worries. But all of a sudden, all these people started turning up, and it was almost like a drag sort of thing. And we didn't know. And we were just like, oh, yeah, listen to the music, everything's good. And then all of a sudden, well,
I'd booked it so that we could stay there, guys. So, like, it was basically, that was part of the deal. So we actually stayed upstairs. We had a massive rider. We played our gig. We came out. Now, Dave is pretty popular with, like, the ladies, but also the guys. Like, you know, and he came off with a singlet and his tight leather pants, and he's walked straight out, and about 3 blokes were sort of staring him down, and he just grabbed hold of me, kissed me on the cheek, and just said, just stay close to me for a minute while I figure this out, kind of thing.
I didn't know what it was.
The photos, I went to bed because me and Chris tend to be the parents of the band, and the rest went down and got fucked for the night. And then all the photos that came out the next day, Dave has had a time. Everyone's had a time. They're very, very funny.
It's that sort of stuff, you know what I mean? And then you meet people that you'd never thought that you'd meet, and best stuff. And that's the stuff you want to come back. Live music, and it's not just for seeing live music, it's the camaraderie that everyone has, it's the support everyone has, and what we have as a scene, and it's mostly thanks to you guys, is that people look after one another and they go into bat for each other and they spread the word about different bands. That stuff cannot die. And, you know,
totally. There's a guy in Mount Gambier called Hammer. If you're watching, Hammer, hey man. But he loves Dave, and he calls him Spirit Fingers. It's his favourite thing. And when we drove up to Adelaide to play with 12 Foot Ninja, that was such a great time because it was so loud in that room. There was a crowd of people to see, and we'd won them over, and they'd all come forward. It was a packed room, so good. And then all of a sudden, it just got quiet in one of our quieter songs, and everyone was in it. And then you just heard this bloke go, Spirit Fingers, like in the crowd. And he's just looked at me like, fucking Hammer's here. And he's come up drunk later, and he's just having a great old chat with Dave at the merch desk. So, you attract these people, and it's just the best.
That's cool.
It's the best. You know, that's what music does. It brings everyone together, and you meet so many different people. You just, you can't beat it. Can't beat it.
That's outstanding. Hammer, you are my new hero. I don't even know you, man. I love you already. I definitely already love you.
Yeah, he's a classic. Absolute classic.
Well, if you're happy to go overtime, I guess I have one more question. But do you have time?
Yeah, that's fine.
Andrew, is that all right?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it, Nikki. I haven't said no. Go for it.
We touched very briefly on the Chapel Off Chapel performance. What an amazing idea. How outstanding. I was intrigued to know there was so many sponsors and reviews worldwide and so many reviews from overseas and people that got involved, which was incredible. Did you have an audience at all in that room, or did you play to an empty room? I'm not sure how that worked with COVID and shit.
Play to an empty room because when we organised it, there were about 15 cameras going on in there.
Yeah.
You know, because you've got the setup ones and you've got people who are moving, and we had a dedicated camera person per person. It was just a massive, huge. But also, we didn't want to complicate that and making sure we were getting it right, because we actually played it twice to get that live performance down. So that being a pandemic as well, it complicates things. You don't know. We knew that we could probably get it done with everybody staying distanced and everything like that on the day, but add the complication of tickets, and then something goes wrong and you have to fix all that up before going into this performance, bearing in mind we haven't played live together since Progfest 2018. And throwing that all into the works, even though we rehearsed really, really hard to make sure we did a great job. There was no crowd there, which that's what Dave was talking about before. It's just not the same, which we learned very quickly.
Interested in that. And as a side note, before I forget to mention it, it's not too late. If someone missed the performance on the night, they can still go on to Beams and purchase the view. They can still get in and have a look, can't they?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be up until the end of August.
Okay.
Well, get onto the website. You can find the links on the Acolyte website. I highly recommend you get there and check it out. Incredible. And I was really intrigued to see how you felt with no actual punters in the crowd to sing to and feel from.
Yeah.
I think if people have seen me perform before, they would have noticed a very different style that I was doing, in the sense that I was much more involved with what I was doing and probably really thinking about what I was doing a little bit more, and maybe playing off the guys a bit. Whereas I'm usually very, very much like pulling people in, like that's what I do. And I couldn't do that because there's not really anyone there. But it was a great experience. And to be honest, I think as a perfectionist, and like many people in our band are, and I'm sure other musicians feel the same way, it's really hard to watch your own shit back. Like it's really hard. But we all watched that together when it aired, and I didn't feel uncomfortable watching it. So I'm pretty proud of it. I really hope people do continue to check it out, because I think it's a good little token piece of what we're about at the moment.
Do you think you'll ever release it on DVD down the line?
A lot of people are asking. Okay. I don't know. I think that'll be the manager will be like,
there's a market.
I don't know.
Something different. It'll be something of a memento in a few years from now.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like, it could be that could work. I don't know. Like, personally, I would like us to do something like that, but with an audience. I think we're at our, like we worked really hard, don't get me wrong, and we really did rehearse and everything, but we're very much a live band in that we do the studio stuff, but interacting with the audience, feeding off one another on stage, really a center point of what we do. And it was a great experience. It was definitely obviously all us, but I still think, get into a packed room when the atmosphere is pumping and everything. I would love to see that done. But hey, still, the Chapel Off Chapel's gorgeous place, and it really did suit the mood of the music. So,
For what we had at the time too, I do have a dream though. Probably 12 months from now, we probably would have released a whole other thing, but I want to revisit this at like somewhere where everyone had little tables with like candles, and I do like an evening with, and it's like I bring out all classical performances, and we do it from start to finish, with live flute and everything, and probably string. We'll reorchestrate it. So that's the aim. I think if I'm going to video something, that'll be the one.
Definitely. With you.
I'm going to quickly jump in. We've got some other people just from around the trust. Just want to recognise our come here. So Neil Boyle has jumped in to say awesome interview. So thanks for tuning in and for the kind words. And the same thing from Ramona over in Europe. She's gone, great interview. Can't wait to see you live here.
That's Dave's mate.
Ramona is my saviour. Ramona's from Switzerland, and she is an absolute legend. She's come out here a few times, and when I do European tours, Switzerland's kind of right in the middle. She's like, just leave your stuff that you don't want to take with you here, and then I'll take you to the airport and you can fly off. And then, it's the best thing, because I've gone over there, I've done 4 European tours, and then I'm like, come stay with my wife and I, and we'll take you around Australia and, well, not Australia, that's too big, but, we took her to some places. It's great. She's an absolute superstar. So lucky to have great friends over there.
Hi, Ramona.
There's a lot of people like that over in Europe. The European scene is very different from us here in that regard. Very hospitable, which is very, very cool over there.
Amazing.
Absolutely. That's one thing we've definitely learnt from all these interviews and all of this. Like, it's ridiculous.
It's very different over there. Michael Gow also jumped in before saying, so keen to see someone perform from start to finish live in person. Now, that would be a true experience, I think, on the back.
Can't wait to show you.
Absolutely.
All right. We are pushing time, unfortunately, but just want to give you a chance now. You've got anything that you want to say to the audience out there watching, whether they're watching live now or later on tuning in, just you got a platform. What would you like to say to anyone that's tuning in?
You go, Morgs.
Thanks for being so patient with us. I can't believe the people who followed us from the beginning just stayed on this whole journey and embraced something so different, so personally. We pretty much read everything, but the amount that we've received over this time, we may have missed little bits and pieces, but we try to catch everything. We really appreciate all of you entirely. We're that kind of band. So if you see us out and about, make sure you say hi, give us a hug, do all that kind of stuff. We have a whole bunch of new things up. If you guys are keen to check it out if you haven't already. And we will definitely see you live as soon as we can in this crazy world we're in.
Absolutely. And I'd echo that and just say thank you to everyone for your support. Like it literally means the world to us, because it's that old saying, you put something out, you never know where you're going to land, and it seems like people are enjoying it so far. So that's great. Thank you. And just keep supporting one another and supporting bands. And if you think people will like your music, feel free to share it, and vice versa. Like, we want to find new bands as well. And keep up with the Hard Rock channel, because this sort of stuff, with what's going on at the moment, this sort of stuff has to keep alive, because it's not just for individual bands, it's for music in general, it's the whole scene. So every little person helps. So don't ever think that, what you could do wouldn't make a difference. It really makes a difference to everyone. So we thank all of you for everything. We'll be here without you.
Very well put. So, Nikki, is there anything else you wanted to squeeze out while you got a minute, or?
I just wanted to squeeze out a massive thank you to Morgs, beautiful girl, and Dave, you're an absolute star. Thank you for making the time to talk to Andrew and I. Your album is just insane, ridiculous, amazing, and magical. And all I can say is to the people out there, we all know Nikki's like a fucking lightweight and a little fluffy girl, but you know what? This album really gets me in the field. It's beautiful. It's just incredible. It's like nothing I've ever heard. You just got to listen to it for yourself. So make your own decision. But thank you to both of you for taking the time to talk to us tonight. And your stories are incredible. And thanks for being so honest and real about them.
Pleasure.
You're so welcome. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah,
I'll completely echo that, and say also that, Nikki, you're not a lightweight or fluffy. You're very important to what we do here as well. So don't ever talk yourself down like that. I don't like it, so don't do it. There you go. You got to be a little bit more believing in yourself. We'll get you there eventually. We'll keep working on you. But no, a big thank you to you guys for taking time out of your schedule again. I know it's very busy for you two, and especially as well, Nikki, you're busy as well. So it means a lot to have you doing these ones with me now as well. But it's been great chatting all around. And the links are in the description of this, or the post, wherever you're watching this, whether it's live now or later on repeat, or catching the audio, whatever you're doing. Hit the links, follow this band, and check out the latest album, Entropy. It's an absolute gem. Like I've said before, we'll be very much in the top 10s at the end of this year for quite a few of us, I think. And anyone I know that's heard this one, and these people that are with the show or not with the show, has loved it. So the old proverbial do yourself a favor, that applies to this record. This is one you do not want to miss. So get onto it now and support these guys, however, wherever you can, because they're well and truly worth it. They're not only great musicians, great artists, but great people on top of that as well. So thank you again for your time tonight. I really do appreciate it. It's been good catching up with you. It's been far too long, and hopefully we'll be able to do it at a venue sooner rather than later, where we can all sit around and have a drink and a catch up face to face. That'd be wonderful, I think.
Yes.
Absolutely. I'm already there in bed.
That sounds about right. I think we're all about there. But no, we will pack it up there for now. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. It's been great having you with us. Thanks for jumping in the comments and giving us some of your stories as well. It's been fantastic to get the interaction going on. And feel free to leave any comments that you've got going on later on too, as you watch it later. But for now, we will say farewell. Thank you, one and all, for tuning in. We'll see you all again very, very soon. But thanks. And that's it for now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Now I'll do the one by one. So first of all, now it's goodbye to Twitter. So we'll say goodbye to Twitter first off. They're going bye-bye. And now we log off from YouTube. So it's bye-bye for now for YouTube as well. See you.